we found it very, very worthwhile, and the one thing that came out of it is at Daryl's suggestion, Daryl Irick, we are now going to have those meetings quarterly. We're going to meet every 3 months so that we don't have to wait for 2 years. And basically, he is hoping that we will serve as his eyes and ears as far as what's going on in the wonderful world of buses.
And a variety of issues came up.
Anyway, but Andrew, you may want to talk.
You know, issues from not pulling to the curb to signage to short turns. A whole host of issues came up and were very well received. They will be looking into each and every one of these issues. And again, it was really made clear, if you have a bus issue, make note of the obviously the route number, but the vehicle number. In many cases, which Trudy brought up and others have brought up, operators' badges are not visible to the rider, and sometimes they don't want to make them visible. So identifying the actual run by the bus vehicle number will work.
And the time.
But if you can't get that, they would like
route,
to
the time,
know
the date.
what drivers are. They would time, route, as much detail as you can give. But they would also like to know, because drivers are required to have their ID number visible, and more of them are just turning them around or slinging them over. When you make your report on whatever the incident is or the problem, you should also note, if the driver will not give you his or her number, that they, note that in your report also, because they are very concerned about that. They thought that they had resolved the problem. They're going to send out another notice to all the drivers saying your number is supposed to be visible, but they don't know if that'll help. So, but everything, and to please get the reports in as quickly as possible. If you're on, you have to get it to Bill.
Yeah.
Bill and myself,
Because we'll,
Yeah.
we'll make sure.
Into this office, whatever it is, as quickly as possible, because they are still going to write it up. But it is now not only going to go to Deborah, but it's going to go directly to Darryl, so that he knows in a real-time fashion what is happening.
Okay. So that was a piece of good news.
well, that's it, and Shill's going to work with us by tracking them, so we can watch for patterns ourselves, and if we need to
Keep
keep a log, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
Mr. X?
I don't know if this is old or new.
Old business.
Old business we're doing now.
What I'm about to say, it would be old and new. Okay? Again, wasn't up and upstairs. Again, you started a meeting without me, which I don't appreciate. Again, I see visitors going upstairs before me, going upstairs before the meeting start, and I go upstairs after it starts. I don't appreciate, which I didn't mention to you in the past, that was my fault, but I just noticed that there's two visitors, one male, one female, went upstairs before me, before 12:45, and I went upstairs.
We got a call, what time?
We got a call around just before 12:45.
That's when we were notified that you were here.
No, we knew you were here 3 hours ahead, which
Okay.
you were here 3 hours ahead of the meeting.
3 hours.
Okay,
3 hours
so
ahead
that
of the meeting.
doesn't explain.
But we got another call at 12:45, and they asked whether we should let you up. I responded by email and said yes.
Okay.
Also, before be there at 12:45, but before 1 o'clock upstairs, but then let me so.
Yeah, that's the policy. You can't arrive hours ahead of a meeting. A few minutes ahead is what you should do, and then you'll be let up.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for the record.
It's not our rules, it's the building's rules.
That didn't happen with me, as usual. Okay? As I said before, earlier today.
We don't control that, Mr.
Okay,
X.
so explain to me how two visitors, one male, one female, went upstairs before 12:45, and I went upstairs after 1. When I arrived here, as early as 10, told them why I was here. And I said, just let me know when I can go upstairs.
Mr. X, I responded at 12:46. I can't do any more than that.
Okay.
Now listen, we've got a lot to talk about before President Byford gets here, and I really want us to get to these issues. So, is there any other old before we move on to new? Okay, let's do new business. Did you have something, Chris?
No.
No? Okay. Marisol, did you have something?
So, this was, I'm sorry, maybe I missed it, but this was being shared because,
Just sort of a refresher,
okay,
it's the
Rules of
rules
conduct?
of conduct.
okay.
Actually, we're going to, if it's okay with everyone, we're going to make a little administrative change because we are no longer meeting in the 5th floor boardroom at 347 Madison. And even if we were, we would not be disturbing anybody. So we're going to make a little administrative
Maybe
change.
some
that
workers.
We are
So this
often,
is just a reprint of what we got.
yes, this is what we adopted.
It's a reminder.
This is what we adopted, but
So
we'll
this is just a
administratively
reminder.
make a change. It'll say we often meet near people's workspaces.
Okay.
The reason-
So it's a reminder.
The reason we
Yeah.
gave this out again today is I'm going to try to tightly run the meeting with President Byford because his report is very important. He's got a lot to say. I want him to be able to get it out, and I want a question and answer session with crisp and cogent questions so he can get to as many as possible. His time is, he's really busy, as you can imagine, and his time is limited.
No, I appreciate it. I think this should be followed not just at this meeting, but at
Well, I
every other
agree.
meeting as
And
well.
also, and can we also add, just to add, Madam, can we also add this for the Long Island Railroad to the council?
They
I don't know that they have
They
a
do
code.
not, they have not adopted their own, it's adopted by each council.
Maybe we should bring
Could
it up.
propose it.
Maybe we could bring it,
Thank you,
maybe we
Ellie.
could bring this up at the next PCAC meeting.
Well, I don't know that a motion on a code of conduct for another council from our council would be taken that well.
No, I didn't say
We have
that.
to follow it ourselves.
That we should bring this
Oh,
up at the PCAC meeting,
They're,
so that the other councils know about it.
Well, you could say,
Well, there-
And
if it's
suggest
work,
that this become a code of
I
conduct.
thought once we
For
did
the whole
bring it up, we
PCAC.
told them
No.
about it.
we did, we
We've
brought it
done
up,
this
and we
already.
also
No.
It's been
PCAC
done
adopted a code for them, for the PCAC.
Yeah,
But
it's
each
been done.
council,
This is just a reminder. So
each
that-
council
reminder,
does its own
yes.
business in its own way.
It wouldn't hurt, I mean, I can certainly say, we have this in effect, it's working well, you might want to consider it if you're so inclined.
We'll put it in your chair's report, and you can comment on it.
We can do that.
ideally, we can point to today's meeting as an example of how well it works.
Agreed.
Speaking of the Long Island Railroad Council, we're due to get some updates on the status and how it's selling of Atlantic Ticket, so we will be, as soon as we get that, we will be bringing that to everybody, obviously. Several public speakers at the full MTA board meeting referred to that and how they would love to, one speaker said we would love to see it on the Hudson line of Metro North in Riverdale, since that station, and actually Spike Dival as well, is far from any subway line.
Yeah.
So, and obviously when co-op, when the new line comes into, when East Side Access opens and Metro North goes through over the Hellgate Bridge on the New Haven line and stops at Co-op City, those folks would be another
Andrew,
priority.
I don't know if you know, Charlton D'Souza is here, and he
Oh, I
actually
see him, yeah.
has been recording people that, he has a group of friends that use the Atlantic ticket,
That's why I'm
and
looking
he's been
at that.
reporting to us on
He has friends?
He's one of our field representatives.
That's what I'm looking like.
So does he want to say anything?
Do you want to give any update on what your experience is with it?
If I may,
You may.
sure.
You may, come.
Come on up.
Okay, sure.
Come on down.
Price is Right was only on an hour ago.
Just, you want me to come up front or?
You're fine there, you're fine.
Okay.
Basically my experience with Atlantic Ticket, the biggest issue is the conductors cannot see the date on the ticket, on the weekly ticket. So they have to look at the ticket for a minute. That's been an issue.
Is that because of the size of the date or the
I can show you right now. I actually have an Atlantic ticket in my wallet, and yeah, the date is so small
Small.
that they can't see it. It's very, very tiny. And it's a big, big issue the conductors are having, and they pleaded that they want the date made bigger in bold print instead of the. Sorry. There you go, right there. It's right on the top. Yeah.
I mean, it's not as tiny as that, but it could be bigger.
Bigger,
It
yeah.
could be bigger.
And
electronic, I mean, it's not like it's an old-fashioned type.
So it was just the date issue, and then they also had other issues. The first week I used it, the guy was asking me if it's a legitimate ticket.
Could I ask what sector of the system you wrote it on?
Hampstead branch.
So you wrote it from Queens Village or?
Queens Village to Atlantic Terminal.
Okay.
And I did it for about 3 weeks.
Oh, very important question, Charles.
Yes.
I don't want to interrupt you again, but
Sorry.
when you arrived at Jamaica, first of all, was your train destined for Atlantic Terminal when you got on it?
No, and that's one of the things I talked about in the Facebook video. It was going to Penn Station. It was the 7:42 peak train to Penn Station. Now the problem is, if you're in the last car in the back, when you get off at Jamaica, you gotta make a beeline, because the Atlantic cars are short. So that's one of the things I talked about in the
The
Facebook
cars aren't
video.
short, there's just fewer of them.
Few of them, right. I mean, that's what I meant to say, sorry about that. But yeah, that's been an issue.
And I forwarded, Charlton did a terrific video of the experience of using it, and I did forward on, because it includes comments of what's working and what's not, and I forwarded it on, and I got a response that they received it and appreciated that you had done that.
But
Oh, the railroad
What I
did.
was
I
getting,
said
Oh.
forward it on to the railroad.
what I
Oh,
was
wow.
getting at, Charlton, is did the conductor make any sort of announcement that said holders of Atlantic ticket must change at Jamaica?
No, there hasn't been any announcements in the 3 weeks that I've read. And the worst part of it is, they don't even know what an Atlantic ticket is. So it's embarrassing.
Still.
It's very embarrassing.
Because if they don't make that announcement, there's a good chance somebody's gonna ride between Jamaica and Penn Station.
It's happened
and
already.
use that ticket and think it's good.
And assuming they check tickets, which.
Yes, that's another assumption.
Oh, they're checking tickets, believe me, they're checking tickets. But most of the conductors in the
That's
morning,
troublesome. I'm
it's
gonna
been
report
kind
that
of
to Phil Eng then. Okay.
yeah, it's been kind of embarrassing, because they're looking at the ticket for like 4 minutes the first week, and all the passengers are looking at me like, what's going on here? So, it was kind of embarrassing, but I just
Stuart
went
has
with
a
the flow.
question for you.
Yes.
Well, not a question, just a comment about the tickets. So, through my work, I've been using that line as of late. The tickets are really not prominently displayed on the ticket machines. Meaning your first instinct is to buy a ticket. Then your instinct is peak or off peak.
But when it asks you your destination?
No, you have to choose Atlantic ticket first.
First.
And that's
Which
in
is
a
on
row
the
of
first
3 at the bottom of the screen.
But it's on the first screen.
It's on the first
It's on the
screen
main
still.
screen. There's prominent signage about this option, but not near the machine. So you're not knowing what Atlantic ticket is, but they are in the outbound checking tickets now. When I first reported the last time, they weren't doing
What
it.
time of day is that, Stuart?
These are the 8:04 trains out
AM?
of, out of
Out of Atlantic Terminal?
Atlantic Terminal, or the earlier one,
Yeah.
7th.
For some reason, in the height of rush hour inbound, they're not checking, certainly between Jamaica and Penn. I've experienced that myself.
But it is meaning if someone just went up and wanted that cheaper fare, they wouldn't.
It's not immediately obvious. All right,
Also,
Charles, go on.
the
Thanks.
posters, I've seen the Atlantic ticket posters everywhere but where it's needed the most. There's no poster in Queens Village, there's no big poster up at Hollis, so people are paying $10.75 and paying $7.50 during the off-peak, and a lot of people still don't know that an Atlantic ticket exists.
But does that mean when they go to, are you saying they're buying it on board or at a machine?
They're buying it at a machine,
Yeah.
they're buying the regular tickets,
So,
they don't know it exists.
well, perhaps
Is it 20?
they're picking a destination between Jamaica and Penn, and that's why it's not popping up?
No,
No.
well, the problem, if I may, when let's say you're going from Queens Village to Atlantic Terminal, the problem is when you put that option in the regular ticket process, Atlantic ticket doesn't show up as a box. It doesn't show up as an offer, which I explained.
You have to choose that first.
You have to choose it first, Charlie.
Yes.
That's
How do you know to
That's the
choose it?
problem.
That's what's
That's
confusing.
that's what
about it.
Stuart's saying.
Of its existence.
So what does it say? One way round trip and then Atlantic ticket? Is that what it says? Or peak, off peak Atlantic ticket?
No, he's
The
saying,
No.
bottom one says Atlantic ticket.
It's, you have your regular choices, and then in the bottom tier, it just says Atlantic ticket.
After you've made what choice?
No, on the primary
On the
screen.
First screen.
That's
Okay,
correct.
so
So,
that's where you have to know to look for it. Maybe we'll ask them
So
to.
you have to have the posters to let people know what
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is, so
And
you
the
would know,
posters-
oh, that's what I
the
want.
posters
Yeah,
aren't near the ticket
Otherwise, you don't know
machine.
what it is.
Okay, I'm gonna bring
They
that up
should
because
put it right
this
next
is
to the
destined to failure if
We
they're.
passed that on, but I'm thinking I can CC you on
Please
each
do.
comment that comes in.
And I took a video actually of the ticket screen when I was buying my first ticket. I took a video of it to show you guys. I don't know if y'all got that video, or I'm assuming you had it.
Yes, I have passed on
You did.
all of what
I
you've
got it.
said.
Okay.
So, I think following up on where those are, I mean, I think they're taking this stuff in. I'm not sure they're changing it during the course of the pilot. I think that it's feedback for the pilot is what I'm getting a sense of.
Yes,
But
yes.
a
And-
pilot is to try different things to see what works, isn't it? I mean,
I think
they
that-
won't
Well-
get feedback saying the Atlantic, if people don't know to look,
Right, if you don't,
look
cha-
for
if
the
you,
Atlantic.
so we should know, can they change mid-course
Oh,
and
they definitely can.
improve things? Well, certainly
It's a
posting,
programming,
putting
it's programming
posters.
for the NVMs, that's all
Okay.
it is.
so
Andrew?
I'll CC
So if
you
it's not
on.
immediately obvious, that Atlantic ticket is an option, that's not good, that's not gonna hit enough people, so.
Andrew?
Also, it doesn't work on Nice Bus or Beeline Bus, just so you all know, I tested it out.
No. Interesting.
It doesn't what? I'm sorry.
It doesn't work on Westchester buses, it doesn't
No,
work
of
on
course
Nice
it
Bus,
doesn't.
it's an invalid
I
part.
knew that.
I tested it.
Yes,
All
Russ.
right.
You know, Andrew, you know, the last time we discussed this issue, when we did the press conference, they said to us they were gonna have people at Queens Village.
But only
You
for a
mean-
limited time.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
but
like the
limited
first
They
time.
couple
had
of weeks, yeah.
people
But I
there?
gotta be honest,
Me?
Yeah, did
No,
they,
there's been no people.
there's been no people at
I've been given
Hollis
I think
brochures.
maybe we
That's
need to bring that up
like-
because,
That's like the SBS, same.
well, yeah, but there's one difference with Long Island Railroad is we're doing a pilot. If we're doing this pilot and they want to make sure that people get the right information, we might have to go out ourselves then to really make sure that we're giving out the information.
Yep.
Because this is going to be, you know, this doesn't show respect between the Atlantic ticket or the accessibility part too.
This is really good feedback. I saw the machines on the kickoff and one other time, and to me, that I knew what to look for, so it wasn't,
which is
you
the
know.
difference.
But the average person in the street might not, and so we have to make it much more obvious that that's an option.
People don't know that it exists.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that's the best place on the screen for it to even appear, to be quite honest. You know, maybe after you've.
We have discount tickets.
No, you know why I
and-
say that? Because
Senior.
after you
Yeah,
pick
it's all discounted.
your destination, that's when, I see, that's when it ought to be apparent. Because if you picked Queens Village to Woodside, it shouldn't pop up.
Yeah, ideally it would,
Right.
it would give you that
Yeah.
option after you pick the
You must start,
Exactly.
you must start with the icon that says Atlantic ticket.
Yes.
Why isn't the sign applied actual in all stations that are covered by this? It'll make it a lot easier.
We're gonna wrap this up unless anyone has anything else on this topic, but we obviously, this is great feedback and we know what we have to do. And how to get this more visible to the traveling public. Okay. Oh, here, I got it. You want to be up there? Is that good? Or the light will be in your face if you're here for the power. Okay.
Oh, I should flip this up.
So, not yet, please.
I didn't know you were still.
Please. Great. So this is a great treat, and I hope you will all feel the same way. It's been 6 months that President Byford has been on the job, and I've been watching the transit system for a very long time. Yes, I'm old. And
Stop it
Taking my line.
I have not seen a transformation this visible, this obvious, and this wonderful in quite a while. And I'm not just saying that to butter him up. He is transforming the way New York City Transit does business. He comes from a long terrific transit history, both on the London Underground and on the Sydney transit system in Australia. He began not as a top person, but as a, what was that title? Station foreman, yes, on one of the, was it the District Line?
It was the Bakerloo line.
Bakerloo Line, okay. This is what this place needs, fresh eyes, a fresh approach, and top people, a top transformation of the way New York City Transit is managed, the way service is delivered, communication with customers. Notice I'm not reading the bio because that's just, you can read that for yourself. I just want everybody to be aware that it is not business as usual. He really values feedback from riders, wants riders' opinions, rides the system all the time with a very prominent name tag, so there's no question as to who he is. And the bus system, of course, has brought in a terrific chief of customer service who will be joining us momentarily, Sarah Meyer, who will also be here to answer questions. The fast forward plan is not cheap. I think one of the board members mentioned sticker shock. We should not have sticker shock. When you ignore infrastructure for many, many, many years, nothing gets cheaper, it gets more expensive. So the sooner you work on it and the more you can get done in a timely fashion, the better it is for everybody. So with that all said, it is a real pleasure to introduce Andy Byford, President of New York City Transit.
Okay, so good afternoon everyone. Thank you Andrew, thank you for that kind introduction. Just while we're setting up the presentation, make sure you don't look in the light. Yeah, that's my background. I'm a transit professional, that's what I do. I have been in transit 29 years now. It's what I've always done and what I always will do. It's kind of a passion for me. And my career has taken me, as Andrew said, from being station foreman at Regent's Park in 1989 through London Underground.
At the TGC.
What was British Rail, yeah. And so what was British Rail, then 3 years in Sydney in Australia, which was fantastic. 6 years with the Toronto Transit Commission, the third largest transit authority in North America, and now here. The pinnacle of my career, without question. It's my honour to be here. It's my honour to live in, and pleasure to live in New York. And an absolute honour to be amongst you and to serve you as my customers and riders. It was apparent to me straight away what needed to be done here. I mean, obviously, also you do your homework before you come. Because we've moved about a bit, my wife and I, you kind of get used to new challenges and certainly do your homework first. This lady who just walked in, this is Sarah Meyer.
Hi everyone. Everybody.
Good evening, Sarah.
So we'll come on to Sarah. I mean, for me, it was immediately apparent what needed to be done. Not really a surprise, because just again, the point I was making was you do your homework before you come to a new city. And I remember reading through the summer of 2017 all about the summer of hell, and I read the various New York Times articles. So you certainly don't come into a new challenge with your eyes shut. Having said that, my first 2 weeks here, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, the scale of this place, the complexity of it, the politics, the media scrutiny. You know, I've been well prepared with the hard schools of knots that are Sydney and Toronto, where, you know, particularly Sydney, Australians don't mince words. But this is another league altogether. But I like a challenge, and this is the daddy of all challenges. So what I thought I might do is rattle you through very quickly, and I'm mindful that some of you may have seen this, so I'll go through fairly quickly the fast forward plan, once we can get it just up on the screen. And then I wanted to just make a few other points. I'll ask Sarah to just headline some breaking news for you, just about the customer charter commitment, the customer commitment that we are going to launch imminently, so you'll get a sneak preview of that. And then we'll be very, very happy to take your questions in the hour that we've been allotted. So, how's it coming? Is it coming up?
We have tech coming.
We have a check on the way.
Try the power button?
Try that. I'm going to try the usual.
Okay.
It's flashing, sorry.
Flashing has changed.
How old are you?
Action is up.
No problem. Here it comes. Here it
Powering
comes.
on.
So, the name of the plan is deliberately chosen, Fast Forward, because this is meant to be expedited, hence the word fast, and it is meant to power New York forward. There's a role model for this, and because people keep saying to me, oh, this is ambitious, you know, never get done, no way, it's too big a challenge. Well, first of all, I think that's defeatist, and secondly, the role model is London, where I started my career. 20 years ago, the New York subway, the London Underground, where I used to work, was in a similar state. It had unreliable trains, ancient signalling, slightly squalid stations. And yet now, when you go to London, it's transformed. And you know, there's lines there that operate 36 trains per hour. The service is just relentless. You see the red lights of the train disappearing. You've got a train in the platform, you can see white lights approaching. It is relentless, and that's what we've got to get to here. So again, name was deliberately chosen. Where's that sugar? Or are you're going to drive for me? Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the background. You know all of this. And in my preface, within the document, this is the document, within the document you'll have seen that I wrote, how did it come to this? The world's greatest city, and I got in trouble, by the way, back in the UK for saying that. Friends of mine emailed me and said, what's all that about? You know, well, I live here now, right? I'm not stupid. The world's greatest city, and a fabulous transit system. How did it come to this? How did it come to be in a state of emergency? And you know, I think there's, different people have different views about should that have been called. I think it was exactly the right call because it focused people's attention and it unleashed our ability to get things done more quickly. So that's the background to it. So what this plan does is very simple, not quick or cheap, but it needs to turn transit around quickly and simple. And what we want to do. Modernisation to me, in many ways the same challenge that faced me in Toronto, but just exponentially bigger. The scale is much bigger, and also we're starting from way further back. You need to do effectively three things. I'd argue probably four, but modernisation isn't just about modernising equipment and infrastructure and stuff, important though that is. You've also got to change the way you do things, so to modernise the processes, which in many cases are ponderous, and they certainly are here. You know, things take forever, and they're so bureaucratic, and that's one of the reasons we're in the mess we're in. But also to change the culture such that you feel valued as riders in your journey. That's how you can say you can be world class. Anyone can buy a new subway car, anyone can build a new subway line, but to be world class, I want you to feel valued while you're with us and to get the basics right. So it needs to be a top to bottom modernisation. So this is what we're going to do. There's no messing about, one of my favourite phrases, but I think it sums up some of my philosophy.
That's the name of a great album by Acoustic Alchemy.
There you go. I didn't know that. This man is a mine of useless information.
Now for sharing.
In the first 5 years, moving right along, in the first 5 years, so as I said, no hanging around. We are going to, and I'll break this down in more detail in just a second, but we are going to overhaul the signalling system on 5 lines within 5 years, right? Including some of the big guns, like the Lexington Avenue line. A huge number of new cars. We're going to make 50 more stations accessible. What I should have said, if you don't mind me backtracking a second, Andrew made reference to 6 months. And I've only just passed that 6-month anniversary, but I remember thinking as I left my apartment, temporary residence in 42nd Street at that point, what am I going to say on day one, turning up at Bowling Green? So you think about it, and I walked the route the night before because you don't want to look like an idiot and not know where the escalator is. So I walked the route the night before, but I figured out, and I think these 4 things will stand the test of time. So there's 4 basic challenges. 1, transform the subway. Number 2, get people back on the buses, because there's this depressing decline in bus ridership. Why? Because the bus network isn't particularly attractive at the moment. Number 3, to go on an all-out blitz to make the system accessible. And number 4, which is the one probably people hadn't predicted, to cherish and to develop and to motivate and to lead our staff such that they want to deliver the right product, so that they believe in what we're doing and so that they do it naturally, not through coercion, not through a big stick, but because they believe in the mission. So those were the 4 things. So this list reflects that. So we're going to push on and make more than 50 more stations accessible in the next 5 years. By targeted infill, within that 5 years, by adding 36 more stations, we can deliver a system, a network, whereby you are no more ever than 2 stops away from an accessible station. That is a step change from where we are currently. So you imagine a station here and a station there. It might still have 4 in between, but you're no more than 2 stations away, ride, from an accessible station, okay? So that we are going to achieve within 5 years. A state of good repair, kind of topical with what happened at Borough Hall the other day. 150 stations will be renovated in the first 5 years. We will redesign all the bus routes in all 5 boroughs within 3 years, so that buses go where you want them to go, not round the houses. We're going to introduce a new fairment payment and a whole load of new buses. And in the next 5 years, more of the same. So a further 6 lines onto CBTC, communications-based train control, more on that. Another 130 stations made accessible. So if you add that to the 50 we've already talked about and the 118 that have already been done, we're pretty much there within 10 years. Another 150 stations completely renovated top to bottom, more new subway cars, more new buses. So, one thing I have said is the most transformative thing that can be done in this city to revolutionise travel is to push all out to re-signal the subway. At the moment, we rely on what's called fixed block signalling, and it's safe, and it's time-honoured, it's done its job, but it's worn out, it's increasingly unreliable, it's increasingly expensive to maintain, and it is horribly capacity constrained. We run as many trains as we can on what fixed block allows. So while the subway action plan is all about, what we're doing at the moment, is all about stabilising what was a precipitous decline in reliability. And then we are making progress, contrary to what is sometimes reported, and I'll give you some stats on that. It will only be as good as it currently is, or with incremental improvements. What we need to do to transform travel in this city is to bite the bullet and completely re-signal the subway. So that's what we're going to do. And people have said to me, well, how do you manage to do that? Because there was some talk about it'll take 50 years to re-signal the subway. Well, it would have done had we continued the way we were going, which was 1 line at a time. Each line took about 7 years, so if you extrapolate that, it would take about 50 years, which is of course ridiculous and unacceptable and untenable. So what I said to my team was, we need to look at this in a fresh way. So that's exactly what we've done. And so what we said was, we start from a fresh sheet of paper, but here are some new principles. 1, we'll do more than 1 line at once. 2, I want minimal customization of products. One of the traps we've fallen into in the past is to keep customizing things, to make it New York specific. And okay, every subway has its idiosyncrasies, but if the more you mess about with a product and change it, the more expensive it is, the longer it takes to install, and the less reliable it is when it's first installed, because you've messed about with it. So what I want to do is go out and buy proven products. If there is a signalling system that's working in Hong Kong or Singapore or London, I want 24 of those. Give me those and let's get on with it. And then